What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Event Masters. This is the show where every single week we take you on a transformational journey from event prof to event master, and we do it by bringing in some of the best and most elite in the world to tell you everything they know. This week's no different. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the show, Event Masters. You need to listen to this if you want to throw bigger and better events. Learn how to monetize and land bigger acts. Yeah, this is where you can learn how to do that. Event Masters.
Welcome to episode, I think it's 23. It might be 24. I'm really not sure because we missed a week, so I apologize about that. But we're back this week. We're coming back. We'll be on schedule. I promise. We're going to be here every single week. So for those of you who blew up my phone last time, I'm sorry. But anyways, we're here today. And today I'm excited because for 23, 24, as I just said, episodes now, some of you have been asking me what this certain line in our intro song is. Right? The whole land bigger acts. Like, what do you mean by that? And today we get to dive deep into it, and the gentleman who does it at a very high level, and I'm excited too because I look up to this man massively. We also have him speaking at our August 3rd, 4th, and 5th pop-up event, Mastering the Event Business, where he's going to talk about his multiple decades in this industry and how he's built his business. But today, we're going to talk about how landing big acts, how you can land acts, how you get talent, how to book talent, what to do, what not to do, all of that good stuff. He's learned everything he possibly could, and we're going to share it with you today. But before we do so, right, if I don't ask, you don't do it, right? So make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, following, and downloading the podcast. Join Event Masters on all social medias. Websites coming soon. Masterminds coming soon. Pop-up event. Okay, pop-up event August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We will put the link somewhere. Someone on this team that I know is watching will put the link in the comments. Watch. If I ask, it happens. Anyways, and also one more thing before we get into Jim Cressman today is text us Event Masters. Okay, text us Event Masters at 407-214-5335. And got some surprises for the folks who do that. So without further ado, I'm excited. As I said, we're going to be talking about booking talent, all of that good stuff today. If you've ever wanted to know how to get the creme de la creme to come entertain or educate, this is the knowledge that you need. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jim Cressman. Jim, my man.
Hey, Dylan.
So thankful for you being here again. I'm getting to hang out with you a few times this week, so this has been fun. I will take all the time I can. So once again, thank you for hopping in here today. So without taking too much of your time, and I want to keep this short for the folks that are streaming this today. First, before we get into the good stuff, Jim, can we give the people a little bit of backstory on who you are and where you come from and what you do?
Sure. So I run a company up here in Canada called Invictus Entertainment Group. We promote and produce approximately 700 to 1,000 shows a year and book as well. We have an agency component to our company, a management component. We have a label affiliation with Universal Music that's a joint venture. And then I've built a reputation as a promoter for about the past decade up here, taking a lot of really big shows into secondary and tertiary markets, not just in Canada, but we've also promoted shows in Hawaii, Alaska, and throughout the continental U.S. So, been at this for a total of over 20 years now, but really serious about promoting for the last decade or so.
I like it. Well, let's touch on that before we get into the booking, because booking and promoting are definitely two different beasts, I'm sure. So on the promotion side, I do believe that a lot of us don't really think as promoters when they're event organizers or what it means to promote an event. So for those watching and streaming this and watching on the replay, for those of you who are watching this replay, let us know you're here. But for that, what makes a good promoter?
There's just a couple of critical elements. The first one is pay your bills on time, right? If you're not capitalized, don't do it. I always tell this to people, like, you wouldn't, if you're a rational human being, you wouldn't go to a casino to gamble your paycheck away if you're living paycheck to paycheck. So if you are promoting shows, understand that you are in essence gambling to a degree. Now, there are some variables that you could cover off to mitigate your risk, and we'll talk about those. But be in a position where if you're hiring an artist for $50,000 and there's an additional $50,000 to $60,000 in show costs, that you can lose $100,000 and still be okay. If you're not in that position, you're going to start making bad reactive decisions. So number one, pay your bills. Number two, be reachable, communicate efficiently, and in an expedient manner. I can't tell you how many times I've booked something on the agent side and it gets up. It's the show is on sale. It's been announced. And I'm checking in with this person regularly to make sure that they're selling tickets and their event is doing well. And sometimes they're not getting back to me. And it's like, hey, we can't fix problems if we don't know they exist, right? So if the show happens to be struggling, let us come in and help with more press, more promo. We can have artists shoot videos. We can have artists do interviews. There's lots of things we can do to navigate, but we have to be aware. So make sure you communicate. And then on the day of the show, don't cut corners, even if you're up against it. I have built my reputation by taking losses on the chin and making sure that I had the venue curated to a point where it looked good no matter what the situation was or how many tickets it sold when the artist got on stage. Maybe we had to cut it down or drape some sections off. I paid the bills and I didn't cut any corners on catering or making sure the artist had everything they wanted. And then the agent and the artist camp, they'll talk, they'll do a post-mortem after your event. And if the agent goes, man, that promoter lost $50,000, but he really took care of my artist and my client and made it a great experience for them. He filled up the venue. He did everything he could. This is a good guy or gal, and we're going to deal with him again, right? And so that's how you build a reputation. It's easy to buy a big show, you put it on sale, it sells out. You might start becoming a victim of believing in your own hype. It's what you do when the chips are down that are going to separate you from the jokers in this business. And there are a lot of jokers.
That is 100% true. And you touched on one thing that I think does inevitably in what you've grown into is that reputation that you talked about and just maintaining that, because I've heard it, especially from folks in your business. And I think I've heard you even say you're only as good as really your last show. Right. And that reputation is really probably what has built your career over time so that you could do really whatever you want. You wouldn't be able to get there without the ideas and philosophies you're saying of just over delivering, constantly delivering, and the compound effect that's had on your reputation.
Yeah. And I think over delivering is key. I think you want to make sure that you are just doing everything in your power to be dependable and reliable in an industry that has so many fucking flaky people. Like the music industry, the event industry, it's like a magnet for flaky people. If you can be someone that an agent can call and they can depend on you and they know you're competent and they know that you're an expert in your field, and eventually your reputation just grows. But you're right. I mean, if you have a slip up, bad news does travel a lot faster than good news. That's just the way it is these days, and maybe the way it always was. So you want to make sure you're doing everything knowing that your reputation is always going to be on the line, and then weighing out the benefits and detriments of whether or not you want to keep that pace up. I say no to lots of events because I know I can't give 100%, and I'd rather not do them than do a shitty job and impact my reputation that I've spent 20 years building.
Yeah. So it's you are at a point in making a consistent decision that says, I'm going to take on events. And because we touched on this even yesterday of just people who take on anything and gobble up anything and inevitably can't chase that many rabbits at once, and it inevitably hurts your reputation. So what I'm taking from that is, protect reputation at all costs by, strategic choosing and events that aren't going to damage it. That's what I want.
Yeah. There is a relationship development component to this business. I often urge people who are getting started, make sure you attend the conferences. If the agents will take meetings with you, try to get to their city, make it easy for them. But at the end of the day, it's not a friendship business. It's a who can I depend on business. And if they believe that you can pull off a great, successful event in a market, all of a sudden you're going to establish a reputation and you're going to go from a guy who's making outgoing calls all the time to a guy or gal that's getting calls from those agents, right? That will happen as long as you check all the boxes, pay all the bills, and take care of those artists every time they come through, no matter the result.
That is one of the Kelsey timestamp that. We'll clip it out. That's exactly what I think more people need to hear. That we're going to quote that and put it on a T-shirt. So I want to segue this into what you do. I think very well, and how we met in the first place is the booking side of things. So just short story, and folks out there know it. I going in, 2020, going in to book my first larger music festival. And it's just me, man. It's just me. I'm trying to figure this stuff out. I didn't know the Jim Cressmans of the world. I was just winging it. I was figuring out. I was Googling it. I was like, Google whose manager is, Dustin Lynch. Okay, figure that out. So let's take it back to your early days in helping folks like us who don't have the connections yet. Where do we start when we want to go booking talent? When we've created our event, we know what we want. Like, where does one even begin? Because good Lord, it's overwhelming, and there's so many things out there.
Yeah, so you can. I mean, there's a couple of options. You can try and do everything directly, which can work. Like I said before we jumped on the stream, if you have an aptitude and you're a great negotiator and you know your stuff and you know that you can pull off an event very well, you can probably do this on your own. But if you do have some doubts in the back of your mind, or you're worried about, maybe an agent exploiting the fact that you've not done a lot of shows, then it makes sense to pay a talent buyer, a guy like myself, to middle the deal for you. And a good talent buyer is going to ask you a lot of questions before they agree to buy for your event, because they also have a reputation to protect, right? So a shitty talent buyer will go, send me my fee as quick as possible, send me the paperwork. A good one will go, okay, let's go through your marketing plan. Who do you envision headlining this event? They'll probably have some proprietary knowledge about the market. Like if you're gunning for a show with U2, they're going to go, listen, Live Nation has U2 locked up on contract, so let's not go there. Like, we're not going to get anywhere. It's going to waste everyone's time, and you're going to get a no. And so a good talent buyer will not only expedite the process, make sure that you're covering everything that needs to be covered, but they should save you some money as well. I mean, I really try to save my clients 20% on the artist fee, because I have booked most headline artists enough over the years to know where there's give in their pricing and where there isn't. Now, A++ level artists, you're not going to get a deal. Doesn't matter who you are, right? If Beyonce wants $2.5 million, it's Beyonce. She's going to get 2.5. She's not doing it as a favor to you for 1.7. That's just not happening. But there are situations where artists, who might sort of fall below that stadium or even aggressive arena touring model, who might go, yeah, you know what? That night is a Thursday and it's rolling into, 3 shows we're playing in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and Winnipeg, and we'll pick that up for a bit of a reduction, right? And a good talent buyer will be able to navigate. A good talent buyer as well will come back to you and challenge you with some suggestions and go, I know this is who you want, but if that doesn't work out, what about these other 3 artists? And that's where a lot of events die on the vine. They just don't get the buying done in time. And then they don't have as much time to market, and they lose their stake and claim in the marketplace so that other shows get out ahead of them. So, you want someone who can move the process along and who's going to be secure and strong enough to go, you know what, pursuing that's a waste of time, especially at that budget. Here's what we need to go after if you want to get this done and get an answer by next Friday.
Absolutely. And I think once I entered into a different level of talent buying at both the conference world and the entertainment world, I realized very quickly, I was like, that's I got other things to do. Uh, like it was like, because there's so much nuances that you have learned over 20 years plus that I couldn't fathom to even know to ask a talent. Like I wouldn't know. And then I've also heard you say like there's different hacks of like where you just mentioned, like if you know that they're coming in tour, they're on road for 3 other tours around you, right? Maybe you can couple it, or maybe you can help get them booked at 2 other venues around you. I
Right.
used that back in my on the lower end of days, but how I got someone at a jazz festival was I gave them 2 other venues in town. But like those little hacks are things that us normal folks, if we're not booking talent, it's almost silly to not let the expert do it. I'm a big believer in let the experts do what the experts do,
Well,
especially with
your
event
income
planning.
depends on that a little bit,
Yeah.
right? Like, you're looking to hire out your services as well. So I get that. Yeah, there's a perfect example. I had 2019. I had Carrie Underwood perform in a little city called Fort McMurray, Alberta, where they have inexplicably built a brand new, beautiful 7,000 seat football arena. It's outdoors, but it is state of the art. I have a great working relationship with Carrie and her team. I've done multiple events with them over the years, and the buyer, the city of Fort McMurray, wanted to put a major event in their market, and so they come to me with, we want Madonna, we want Foo Fighters, and I came back and I said, hey, listen, like Carrie Underwood is on tour in May, and she has a Thursday night between Edmonton and Saskatoon off. With a couple of, with another day of buffer on the other side of it. I think we could make that work. I can't get Foo Fighters to come up and do a one-off for your budget, especially, but Carrie Underwood. And the great thing is they had actually called about Carrie and been quoted more than double of what I knew I could get it done at. Because I knew if I call the agent and ask for a Carrie Underwood one-off price, I know this agent well enough, he's just going to give me like the one-off price. But if I call him and say, hey, listen, do you have plans for that Thursday night? No, we don't have plans. You want to pick up an extra XYZ in that, in this market that won't affect your Edmonton show, it won't affect Saskatoon. It's 8 hours away plus from those markets. What do you think? All of a sudden that agent is going, yeah, you know what? I like the idea of filling an off night. And actually Carrie would like to work. So we put her up there. Blockbuster show, sold it out because nobody in that market could believe that Carrie Underwood was coming there. I hired the best production company. I hired a rep because I knew that the city only had so much infrastructure. So there were a bunch of things that I insisted on before I did the buy. I said, like, listen, Carrie likes to get all her money up front. So if that's a problem, let's not go down this road. This is what I think I can get it done for. But you're probably going to have to pay it out before you even announce the show. If that's a problem, then let's not do this. You guys have never pulled off a show to this magnitude. So I want to bring in someone who produces stadium shows for the Eagles, for U2, for Nickelback. And I want that person to be paid by you, the city, to organize all the details around production, load in, hospitality. And if that's a problem, I'm not interested. So they luckily agreed to everything. And then I called Carrie's agent back and I said, okay, I think we got something real here. Sent him an offer on, I want to say it was December the 6th. I was in Hawaii at the time. I had confirmation by the 12th and we announced the following Monday. We can turn these things around quick if everything is lined up and there's no, stupid negotiating points that you're getting through, right? And what I mean by stupid is, somebody going, oh, this artist is $250,000. Okay, well, let's start with $100,000 offer. It's like, I'm not going there because,
Right.
If it's $250, if I say the price is $250, that's the price. Like I know it might actually be $350 or $400. I might be able to pull it in for $250. But if you come in at $100, I just look like a moron. And you look like you don't know what you're doing, and we are going to waste a bunch of time, and the agent probably isn't even going to call us back when we come up to the actual budget that we want to be at, right? So, you don't want to insult people. You want to make sure that if you're putting on an event with a major arena headliner, that you have a great production team, you've got the lighting rig, you've got the stage. We're talking about an outdoor event here, but like Carrie Underwood is not performing on, most small community stages where you might put a party band for Beer Fest. Like, it doesn't work. So, you know, let's not set ourselves up for that. Let's make sure that all these things are in place. And like I said before, a good talent buyer, somebody who's actually worth their commission, they're going to walk you through all these questions and make sure you have everything lined up before they're willing to submit paperwork on your behalf.
Absolutely. No, and it goes back to, I picked out of that, you still goes back to your reputation maintaining. You're asking questions and setting the standard of like, look, if you can't, I know this, if you can't do it, I'm not going to do it. If you can't do this, I'm not going to do it. If you can't do this, I'm not going to do it. But if you can do all this, I will go to bat for you and I will make this work. So yeah. I wanted to touch back on the first point we were making about the reputation control and still always maintaining, but you're also at some level or living out one of our biggest philosophies here at EventMASTERS, which is solving problems. How do you bring that big Carrie Underwood, who I think you've thrown the number at me and I was just like, to be able to bring that to a small town where she normally wouldn't, and you solve that problem for the whole town. So
just to be clear too, if they had wanted to do a one-off Saturday in the summer, they would have probably had to pay what they were originally quoted. But because they were flexible enough, and I was like, listen, there's an opportunity here. If you can adapt your model to do a Thursday night show instead of a Saturday, and you can work with this specific date, I can get you a deal. If not, then I can still get this done, but we're going to be paying much closer to the price that you were actually quoted.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that leads me into my next question, because obviously, like I said, we know what something like Carrie costs, but even backing it down to a $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 artist, I think a lot of people, when they go into talent buying or for conferences, for entertainment or things, it's like the hardest justification for them because the price tags are usually a little bit higher. So I guess from your perspective and opinion, how can event organizers start to justify those higher numbers, or why should they? Or like, why is, some artists worth 150,000 versus 250,000? And then how do I justify that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the nature of the event. You want to do your research if you're putting on a hard ticket event. What I mean by that is you have a publicly facing event where you might have media partners involved, and you want to make sure you've done some research on what the ticket price of that artist has been in the past, so that you can decide whether or not it's a risk you're willing to take. Now, if it's a private event, a corporate event, then it's really just up to the client. If the client says, hey, listen, I want the Eagles, it's like, okay, well, it's going to cost this much money. And if they go, yeah, absolutely, we're good. Well, then now it's just up to making sure you can find the person who could actually get a show that is that complex done. Or do it yourself. In some cases, again, like, people are competent enough out of the gate, but it's very rare. You almost have to learn a little bit by dealing with a talent buyer for a while. And I'm a big proponent of, I usually tell people, I will be your talent buyer, but I will max out the term at 3 years, and then we'll evaluate again after that. Because if your annual event has happened for 3 years and everything's gone swimmingly well, you'll probably be in a position where you can handle the buying going forward. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I've got lots of people who want me to buy, so I don't mind shedding some clients who have built up the reputation and the competence themselves to be able to do that job on their own, because I'd prefer that than have me in the middle and them feeling resentful that they're paying me for a job that they really believe they can do themselves.
Right. And I think that for those who are maybe getting to that point or anything, it's really just self-awareness. Like, what do you want to take on? Right? As an event, like if you're the event organizer, you still have a web of things you still need to accomplish. And even when I feel like even when I build this reputation, the reputation of someone who's still got 20 years in the game is still going to be able to find better deals. And I know the folks that book talent correctly, you're saving so much money because you know what I don't know. that your fee is not even existent. Like I'm paying, I've talked to you genuinely, and I was like, oh, I got quoted this for this artist, and you were like, oh, I've booked him for this, and I'm like, oh, well, it's because we're way different, right? So I think that's something that a lot of organizers still need to continue to have, even when you feel like you can, should you, right? You still have other things you should be doing. So
Yeah, fair point.
I have, do you mind if I got a couple questions coming in, which I like. Do you mind if we
Yeah,
answer a
go
couple?
ahead.
Cool. So this is Jim. Who are some of your favorite artists you've worked with? That's an interesting one. His own. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, I'm the wrong guy to ask for road horror stories. I've had nothing but luck with everybody, and I've worked with artists who some people say are very fastidious and demanding, but I just haven't had a negative experience because I always go into this with the mindset that I want to be of service. I want to make sure that the event is successful, but that I want to build a reputation with that artist and their team as well. So, we've had great luck working with Carrie Underwood, Dolly Parton. We did the last Canadian tour on her. She is just a gem to deal with and a lovely human being. And we're working on some potential stadium shows for her for 2023. John Mellencamp, who a lot of people think is like a tough guy and a grouchy guy. He's just been a sweetheart. Like, he's been amazing. I've been over 30 shows with John Mellencamp and had nothing but good things to say about the guy. And really haven't had a bad experience. Whether I worked with Motley Crue. I did the kickoff of their farewell tour with 2 sold out shows in Anchorage, Alaska. Amazing event. The guys were all incredible to deal with. They were available to do whatever interviews we wanted at the time. Tim McGraw, just another like super affable, positive, amazing human being. Brad Paisley. I've worked a lot with country artists over the years, Zach Brown Band, but all of them have been amazing. Every time I've delved into rock or metal, I've had nothing but good luck. In fact, I mean, this is a little controversial since things have taken a turn for the worse with him, but I did some dates with Marilyn Manson and he was a sweetheart. Like, again, another guy who had a reputation as being really difficult to deal with on the road, but we did 3 shows on a Canadian tour with him in 2015 in the wintertime. And he invited me back to the dressing room every night to chat. I mean, I saw no indications of any pernicious behavior. Anytime I was around him, he was nothing but respectful to the staff and kind and thoughtful. So I think your experience has a lot to do with the energy that you bring into these situations and conversations. And I don't take it upon myself to make myself a pain in the ass. On the day of the show, I'm not looking to get a selfie with the artist. I'll ask very politely if they're doing trade shots, and if they are, great, and if they're not, that's okay. I'm not one of those promoters who's like, well, I got to meet the artist and talk to him. It's like, hey, listen, if the artist wants to sit on their bus all day because that's the best for them to prepare for their show, I'm going to leave them alone. I'm not going to make this about me. And the funny thing is, the less you make it about you, generally the more things open up and people are more intrigued or interested to actually get to know you. And, when I've gone into concerts that I've produced or festivals with the expectation that I wouldn't get to meet everybody because it's going to be such a hectic day, that's usually when I meet everybody.
That's how it works.
Yeah, it is. It is how it works. But if you go in there thinking like, okay, I'm going to get these 9 autographs signed for my friends and family, and I'm going to get a picture that I'm going to frame and put on my wall, and then you don't, maybe the artist just isn't up for seeing anybody, or maybe they have a cold and they don't feel good, then all of a sudden you're pissed off, and that's going to affect how you deal with the crew and the rest of the people on the team. And then that can have a real spiraling downward effect. So I always go into these things with like, hey, I'm the guy paying the bills, but I know my place. The artist is still the boss.
It's always a good thing to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, they really are. So we have another one. This is kind of off topic, but I am curious because you've been to literally thousands and thousands of events at some level. Amanda's our local stage production and design at ViewStub in general. So she had a question of what are your favorite stage designs you've seen out of curiosity. That's just random.
Man. I always like, this is very generic, but I like a large stage, like an SL, the largest one you can get these days, which I'm not even sure what they're classifying them as in terms of numbers, but and then a big thrust with a pit. If it's an outdoor show, give me that thrust, give me that pit. Let those fans stand in the center and get right up against all the musicians who are willing to walk the catwalk. So big fan of B stage scenarios. We had that on the Motley Crue tour where they had the main stage at the front of the arena. Then they had a B stage at the back of the arena. And partway through the show, they transitioned to that B stage and did a whole medley of songs to all the people who were in the back of the arena. So that was great. Carrie Underwood had on her Blown Away tour, she had a stage built within the main stage that actually lifted up to the rafters and on tracks moved to the back of the arena, and she performed a few songs from there, and then it came back to the main stage. So she didn't have to leave the stage at all to actually make her way to the back of the arena. That was super cool.
Yeah, the only reason I know that is because I do. I know the guy behind it, so I'm a big fan of his as well. So I was like, yeah, I remember that. I've seen that one. So that's super cool because you have all of the data. You've been at every level of show and things like that. So I know Amanda knows exactly what you're talking about. So that was right up her alley. So another one comes from our own team. But how many times have you heard the reputation in this episode? It's one of the most important things, I think. I mean, if like at the end of the day, like to grow your business, to grow your sales, to grow longevity, comes down to reputation.
Reputation. And another word I will use a lot is dependability, right? Like make that the first word that comes to people's mind when they think of you. That's a guy, gal, individual I can depend on, right? If that's the first thing that comes to mind, then you are going to grow a reputation arithmetically and then exponentially. Like if people know they can depend on you, it's like that is currency in this industry.
Yeah, that I would usually wrap this up with like, hey, what's one thing we want to leave people off with? But like, I think that's it right there. Dependency and reputation. Dependency leads to reputation. So you can't build a reputation without the dependency. So, Jim, this was absolutely amazing. I can't thank you enough for taking time once again this week to come hang out with me and talk with everybody and just really help this whole EventMASTERS community and what we're trying to do here of just helping people grow their craft, their business, and their relationships. So, with that being said, Jim, once again, all I have is thank you for you. We will drop all of your socials and stuff below, but if this Perfect. Is your time, plug away if where you want them to find you, podcast, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I would suggest for any industry professionals to tune into my podcast on YouTube. You're welcome to subscribe or just go on and stream the episodes. They're free. I have 51 episodes, most of them an hour or longer, where I talk to managers, agents, artists, production people, everybody who has an affiliation with the business. So you can find someone on that list, I'm sure, that you can glean something from. And I always ask them questions and have conversations from the perspective of, the perspective of someone who's in the business, right? It's not a generic conversation. It's not like an interview that you're going to hear on the radio. It's more like digging back and peeling back some layers. And then, you're welcome to follow me or any of my affiliated companies, Invictus Entertainment Group on Instagram, Facebook, Big Star Recordings, which is my label, on Instagram, Facebook, and then myself personally on Instagram. My handle is Jim Cressman Invictus.
I love it. Well, Jim, once again, thank you very much for myself, the entire EventMASTERS community. I'm excited to see everything on August 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Once again, text us EventMASTERS. I'm going to go ahead and Kelsey, can we put up the link one more time for the event where you will be able to come back and hang out with Jim once again, where we talk about and break down the business side of things and what everything he's built. So, Jim, once again, thank you. And we'll see you on August 4th.
Sounds good. Thank you.